We're back. We're so back. We are so back. How are we feeling after we networked? After we took a break? Tell me in the chat. Talk to me. Let's talk for a little bit. Let's just chat for a little bit. How are we doing? How are we feeling? Do we have a little lunch yet? Like, what's our vibe so far? Hi. Ecstatic. Okay, absolutely. Chicken nugget. Dumplings, meow. Okay. I mean, better than me. I changed my cup. More coffee. More coffee. Alrighty. Add me on LinkedIn. No. Because we said we have a whole system that they made to have all your information out there. How amazing. Alrighty. Hey, make sure you're not spamming the chat with your links of LinkedIn because we already chatted about that. We don't want to kick you out of the summit. You don't want to get kicked out, but they will. They will. Y'all, I'm so excited to keep it going. We are about to head into our second half of the day. And let me give you a few reminders. Off the bat, we do have that juicy career fair. It will be opening up in 1 hour at 3 p.m. Eastern time and ending at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's 3 juicy hours to talk. You get to talk. So all these amazing companies, all these amazing recruiters that want to vibe out with you. I know like that's not the technical terms, but that's basically what's going on, right? Oh, yup, it's time to get that money. That's what the alarm said. Also, don't forget to stay engaged in the chat to win points and stay till the end of the summit for the announcement of our raffle prize winners. Remember, it's Chromebooks, it's Amazon gift cards, it's a Fitbit. Let me not even. As we said before, this is the first Color Stack members summit only. And how exciting is that? Y'all made it here. Someone in the chat had said earlier they can't even get into the club. You know what I'm saying? How you hating from outside? You can't even get in. But we're making money right now today. Awesome. So also, remember that we have a very special discount code happening for the Stacked Up Summit. It's Stacked Up 25 to get cool new swag at the Color Stack merch store, which is colorstackmerch.org, and it expires in 2 weeks. So if you got to think about it, open up a tab. You open up a tab and you're like, I'm going to flirt with the idea. And you just put it in your shopping bag. And then next week, you're like looking at it and you're like, I don't know. And then the next week you got paid and then you buy it, period. And you still got the discount code. Yeah. Hopefully you guys are also taking videos, connecting with us online as well through Instagram. Myself, Michelle Adana. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. My Venmo is also Michelle Adana. Tap in. We also have ColorStack.org. They're constantly posting as well and doing meetups and stuff as well. So tap in. Y'all are all members. Y'all already know. But if you haven't yet, make sure to follow myself, Michelle Adana, on Instagram, as well as ColorStack.org on Instagram. And now we're going to spice it up for this next session. We're going to do an Ask Me Anything session with Grace, who is a campus recruiter from Jane Street. Y'all, I'm going to pass it over to our guest, Grace Heisenbottle of Jane Street, and the one and only Naisha Francis of Color Stack. So I'm so excited to pass it over to Naisha for this Ask Me Anything juicy session. Y'all have so much fun. Let's hear it in the chat. Let's hear it in the emojis.
Yes, turn us up, Color Stack. We are so excited to be here today. Ooh, before we start, let me clear my throat. Okay, period. I was just sick last week. Don't judge me. But Thank you so much, Grace, for being here. Color Stack community is so excited to have you, and I'm so excited to host this AMA. But to start, Grace, before we get into the juicy questions, can you tell us a little bit about what Jane Street is and what do you do at Jane Street?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be back at any sort of Color Stack event, but particularly this one. It's one of my favorites of the year. So, hello to everyone, to those of you I have met before and those of you who I haven't. Right. So, can I tell you a little bit about Jane Street? I can tell you a lot about Jane Street, but I'll try and keep this answer brief. Jane Street's a quantitative trading firm. We sit at the intersection of technology and finance. Our engineers are building tools and systems that help our traders and researchers access and trade on basically every single financial market or exchange around the world. We are a proprietary trading firm, which means that we invest the capital of a small group of partners rather than being a hedge fund that accepts capital from the public. We are also not a public trading platform. So this is a common misconception I kind of always like to clear up whenever I'm talking about Jane Street in general. So we're not like a Robinhood or an E-Trade that myself or any of you can kind of log into and execute a trade on. All of our systems and platforms are used in-house by those traders and researchers I mentioned, rather than any sort of trader kind of sitting on their couch at home. What do I do at Jane Street? I look after our campus tech recruiting team. So I help the recruiters on that team hire interns and new grads across any role from software engineering to IT operations engineering, FPGA engineering. If there's the word engineer in the title, I'm helping my team hire for it. So one of my favorite things, one favorite parts of my job at Jane Street is getting to do events like this. Like I said, this is one of my very favorite of the year. So hi everyone. So glad to be with you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Grace. So before we get started with all the questions that we have prepared from our community already, I just want to remind everyone attending the event that you can drop some more questions in the Q&A section. So definitely add those, upvote the ones that you guys really want to hear answered. And with that, we'll get started with the questions we have prepared. So Alex asked, what are the most proactive skills to work on for new grad applications or interviews?
Yeah, I love this question. Thanks, Alex. I'm actually going to generalize my answer a little bit more because our new grad applications and interviews are very similar to our intern applications and interviews, and I want everyone to feel like they can get a relevant answer here. Okay, so the first skill I would say you should work on is advocating for yourself. There are so many ways to do this, but one of the ways that you can do this during your application and interview process is making sure your resume fully represents all of the hard work you've been putting in to yourself and your career. We'll oftentimes see resumes where candidates will describe the company they're working at, or the team that they're working with, or the project group that they're working with, rather than very clearly stating what it is that they have owned or ran or worked on over the last semester or years. So I really encourage you to think about ways to advocate for yourself and your experience throughout both your application and interview process. The second thing I would encourage you to work on is talking out loud about your code. This is a very artificial skill set, and it's probably not one that you're practicing in the classroom all that much. But it is a skill that's going to be assessed over and over again during your technical interviews. So pair up with a friend or a classmate, choose a few LeetCode questions or LeetCode style questions, and take turns asking each other those questions and talking out loud about your technical solutions and the code that you're writing down. It's a really, really hard skill to get right off the bat, so just make sure you're practicing it. I really encourage you to do that.
Thank you for that insight, Grace. And thank you, Alex, for asking that great question. Next up, we have a submission from Nathaniel who asked, I hear a lot of recruiters emphasize the importance of personal projects. How important are they? And is there anything else that Jane Street looks for in its applicants? Maybe a common skill or attribute that all Jane Street employees share?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Nathaniel, for the question. I think when recruiters are talking about or putting emphasis on personal projects, what they're actually really asking you to do is demonstrate that you've written code outside of just a classroom or academic setting. And that can be done in a million different ways. Well, not a million, but lots of different ways, right? It can be done certainly through a personal project. It can be done in an internship. It can be done in open source contributions. It can be done through a project team. So don't drive yourself crazy feeling like you've got to have a ton of personal projects on your resume if you're getting that outside the classroom coding experience in other ways. Of course, if something speaks to you and you're passionate about it and you want to go away and write a tool or a piece of software to address it, go do that. Make that your personal project. And like we just talked about, advocate for yourself when you put that on your resume, call it out, put it on your GitHub. If you have a link to a portfolio I can look at, I love to see that. But really what we're looking for is ways to understand that again, you've written code beyond just your introductory computer science courses. What else are we looking for in our applicants? Common attributes. I would say that the two most common attributes of a Jane Streeter, whether that's an intern or a full-timer, is the fact that we're humble and we're curious. Those two things are pretty hard to demonstrate on a resume, of course, but it certainly starts to come out at any point during your interview process. So let those attributes shine as you engage with your recruiters and your interviewers, both at Jane Street and anywhere else you're interviewing.
Nice. So I feel like this is the second question where I've heard the importance of advocating for yourself. So definitely want to emphasize that powerful statement. Thank you so much for sharing that, Grace.
Of course.
All right, next up, King and Justin asked, when will you start reviewing applications for your Jane Street Summer Immersion Program? And in your opinion, what is the best part about the Jane Street Summer Immersion Program?
Yeah. So for those of you who have not heard about the Jane Street Immersion Program, we call it JSIP for short. It is a program intended for students in between their first and second years of their undergraduate program who are really looking to get a foundational boost on their way to a career in computer science and specifically software engineering. We accept applications. We're accepting applications for the program right now. It's an 8-week program based in our New York City office. It's not an internship, but it does come with a stipend or scholarship in addition to paid housing in New York City, a short, I guess, 10-minute walk away from the office. And it's a great opportunity to learn to code in OCaml, which is the programming language of choice at Jane Street, and leave the 8-week program with a fully built out piece of software that you can write about on your resume moving forward. We will begin reviewing applications. So unlike our internships and new grad applications, which are reviewed on a rolling basis, if you've applied to an internship or a new grad role at Jane Street and haven't heard from us within 5 business days, that means something is wrong on our end, and you should let us know. But for our programs like JSIP, or you might have heard of programs like Insight or InFocus, we will review all applications after the application deadline. So in the case of JSIP specifically, that's going to be February 5th is when we'll start to look at those applications. And then I guess this part 2 of this question was, what is the best part about JSIP? I think you'd have to ask our JSIP fellows what they think the best part about JSIP is to get the most honest answer. But as a third-party kind of observer to our JSIP fellows and their time at Jane Street, I would say my favorite part about the program is watching the fellows build both their confidence and their community. Many of the fellows are coming in and it is their first time coding in a professional environment. And the amount that their skill set grows over the 8 weeks of our program. And I can say the same thing for people who come and attend our other programs like Insight or In Focus, or who do come to Jane Street as an intern or a new grad. The growth in your confidence during your time with us is usually tremendous, and it's incredible to watch. But as is the growth in the community that you get to meet, both your fellow cohorts, so whether that's people in your program or your internship, but also the mentors and the TAs that you're getting to interact with. So those are full-time Jane Streeters who are dedicating multiple hours of their day to working with you. And we'd love to see many of you in similar opportunities. Definitely apply to JSIP if you're in between your first and second year of undergrad.
Wow, JSIP sounds awesome. And I want to
Yeah.
emphasize those applications are open, ColorStack community. So definitely tap in. All right, next up, we have a question from Benny, which I'm sure everyone is curious about because even I am. How closely do individuals in technical roles collaborate with the trading teams at Jane Street? And what level of comprehension of the trading process is typically anticipated from those in technical positions?
Yeah, I love this question because I'm hoping it'll give me an opportunity to clear up any maybe concerns or fear people might have about applying to Jane Street. So I'm going to actually start by answering the second part of this question first, and maybe a little bit of a different direction. But I want to stress that Jane Street, regardless of what role you're applying to in an internship or new grad function, is not expecting you to have a deep comprehension of finance or trading. Many of the interns and new grads we hire don't even know what a bond or a stock is. We'll kind of teach you everything you need to know when you get to Jane Street. All that we ask, and this is coming back to one of my answers earlier, is just that you have a curious mindset and you're open to learning. It's really the most important thing we could ask for you, or from you rather, throughout both your interview process with us and during your time with us, again, whether that's a program, an internship, or a full-time opportunity. Now, how closely do our engineers or folks in technical roles actually collaborate with trading teams is a great question. And the answer is it really depends on what team you're placed on. We have engineers who sit on trading desks. We lovingly call them desk devs. And they are sitting elbow to elbow with traders. And they are working to customize some of our software for the specific needs of the trading desk. So them understanding trading strategy or the specific strategy of that desk is going to be very important, and it does require a significant level of comprehension of the trading process. But again, we'll give you the skills and resources you need to get there. Now, there are other engineers at Jane Street who will work more on what we would call business logic. So they work with teams like my own team, like the recruiting team or even our legal and compliance teams, to build custom software for those specific teams' needs. Now, you still have to be interested in working in finance in a trading firm. It is the ultimate business of what we do. But those roles are going to be a little bit further away from the day in and day out understanding of trading. There's a place for everyone, I like to think, at Jane Street, as long as you're open and willing to learn.
Thank you for adding some clarity to that, Grace. Lots of people in our chat seem to be really interested in that question. So that was a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next we have a question from Christopher who asks, what do you think is the most important part of an intern's role at Jane Street? How does this change as they grow into a full-time employee?
Yeah, great question, Christopher. I think regardless of what internship program you're under at Jane Street, whether it's software engineering, quantitative trading, a sales internship, the most important part of an intern's role and most important skill as well that you can develop is learning how to hear feedback, receive feedback, and update on it. A very, very important part of the mentor and intern relationship at Jane Street is open and intentional communication, because we want our interns to succeed. And we want to make sure they're aware of how they're doing and what they need to do in order to ultimately get that return full-time offer that I know so many of our interns are chasing. And a big part of that is mentors providing feedback to interns on how their project is going, how their communication is fitting into the team, how their coding style is developing or could develop more of. It's really hard to hear constructive feedback. And I think being open to it and then being able to step back from that feedback and saying to yourself, okay, how do I implement the things that I can do better at or that I need to grow at without really making yourself feel bad or worse for it is such an important skill set and the most important thing I think you can do at Jane Street. And then to the second part of this question, it's a thing that I think all of our full-timers have to continue to do. I do it on a daily basis. Being really open to feedback and changes is a critical skill set at Jane Street, I think.
Nice. Thank you so much, Christopher, for asking that question, and thank you, Grace, for answering. All right, next up, we have our last prepared question in our deck. So definitely be sure to be submitting questions in our Q&A section. But last but not least, from Justin, we have, what are some non-technical skills you look for during the recruiting process?
Yeah. I would say we are most frequently looking for communication and collaboration skills. We really want to know what it is like to work with you in a real world environment, and it's sometimes very hard to get at that during the recruiting process. And so we've intentionally designed our interview questions to basically replicate the types of conversations you would have in an intern and a mentor environment. We want to know how you approach hard problems. We want to know how you break those hard problems down into smaller parts. We want to know what prompts you to ask for help and when you prefer to kind of think about things on your own. And we learn a lot about those. We learn a lot about your collaboration and communication skills throughout that process. And I think it's, again, coming back to a question that was asked earlier, something that can be practiced and perfected in practicing interviews and talking out loud with a friend or a classmate as you work through technical problems together.
All right. Thank you so much for answering our last prepared question, Grace, and thank you, Justin, for asking that. So we do have some time for live Q&A, which I'm very excited for. And we'll just get started. So first, let me see. Show on stage. Okay. From Kazim, we have, how do you balance showcasing technical skills on your resume with effectively communicating your soft skills and personal attributes?
Yeah. Okay. I would say that I would really the balance on your resume should really be towards that of showcasing your technical skills. But in showcasing your technical skills, you're demonstrating your communication abilities and your writing abilities as well. I think it's really hard on a resume to accurately portray some of those softer skills. I do love when I see at the bottom of a resume some personality shine through. Like if you're really into I don't know, what did I see the other day? Korean barbecue and karaoke, and then sweatpants was like all in one line on someone's like interest. I'm like, oh great, I know a little bit more about this person. I think it's okay to have a line about that on your resume. It reminds me that you're human and we probably have a lot of commonality. So do that, but don't feel this overwhelming pressure to over reflect some of the softer skills on your resume. Remember that a resume is just the first foot in the door to get that interview, and then from there let those other attributes shine.
All right. Next we have, what does Jane Street specifically look for in quant research or quant trading candidates?
Yep.
And that's from Faith.
Thanks, Faith. Get this question a lot, and I fear sometimes that this answer is unsatisfactory, but it's honest, and so I'll give it to you straight. We're really looking for strong quantitative mindset when we're interviewing for both research and trading. That can mean so many different things, right? It can mean someone who has studied math their entire life. It can mean someone who's very interested in computer science. We find that people who have a strong quantitative mindset are really able to take the problems that face our traders and our researchers, both in internship and in their full-time roles, take those problems and break them down into pieces of a whole that are easier to solve. Again, and I emphasize this in kind of the prepared questions portion of this session, but collaboration and communication is also very important for our researchers and our traders. I will say that the one distinction, so many of our trading interviews focus on probability and statistic and mental math-based questions, as well as some brain teasers and puzzles. To be very clear, we don't ask any of those sorts of questions during our technical interviews. The quantitative research position that we have open is kind of a hybrid interview process of those two. So you're going to get both coding rounds and also rounds that focus on statistics, probability, mental math. So it's really a matter of what speaks to you in terms of which role you apply to, but keep that in mind as you're considering those opportunities.
Thank you, Grace. All right, next one. What are some of the most intellectually challenging problems that Jane Street interns are currently tackling?
It's a great question, and one that I cannot answer comprehensively, but I can tell you exactly where to go to learn more. So if you Google Jane Street, what the interns have wrought, it's WROUGHT. God, I hope I'm terrible at spelling, but I hope I got that right. You'll come upon a blog post series that we post annually at the end of each internship, which goes into a very deep dive on 3 interns' projects and tells you a little bit more about the technical challenges and ultimately results that they face during their internship. So I really, really encourage you to check out that blog post. It's written by Ron Minsky, who is the software engineer responsible for bringing OCaml to Jane Street. He's very attached to this blog post series. I encourage you to check it out and look out for the next one. I guess it'll come August of 2024 with our incoming summer internship class.
Nice. That sounds like an awesome blog post, and I'll definitely be sharing that with our community.
Thank you.
Okay, next. From James, we have, what are some of the key trends or changes you've observed in candidate expectations and employer demands in recent years?
Yeah, this one makes me think. Okay, key trends that I've observed from candidate expectations. Right. Okay, so I think on the candidate expectation side, something that I have seen a lot of, I guess, direct communication to me about, but also chatter about on Reddit and Blind and everywhere else that you all gather and talk about recruiting process is just honesty in the recruiting process. And giving individuals the courtesy of at least a response. And I want to be really clear that I think all of you deserve that through every company's interview process. It's not always going to be the case that a company can provide you with explicit feedback on why they are or are not able to move forward with you in an interview process, or why they were not able to make you an offer. But at the minimum, if you're taking the time to apply to a company or to interview with a company, you should expect and you deserve an update at some point. So I mentioned this earlier, but I'll reemphasize it. If you've applied to a Jane Street internship or new grad opportunity, you should hear from us within a week. If you haven't, you can always reach out to us. It's jobs@janestreet.com. Real Live Humans monitor that mail box, and we'll get back to you. And you should hope and expect for something similar from other companies as well, and consider what your process was like with those companies when you're in the position of considering hopefully multiple offers from companies in the future. How did they treat you when you were a candidate? Were they responsive? Were they kind? Did you enjoy the people you met with? So that's definitely something I've seen an increase in expectations of in the last several years. I would say probably since the pandemic, since 2020, and one that I think is justified and deserved. Employer demands. I'd say that we're really increasingly hoping for candidates to have a strong basis in computer science, regardless of what role we're interviewing them for, or at least a technical skill set, whether that's in the form of a minor or a major across the computing kind of field. it doesn't really, we have many computer science majors in our trading internship, in our strategy and product internship. I know a lot of you are CS majors and minors as well, so I think you're in good company right now.
Thank you for giving some thought to that answer, Grace. And next up, we have, can you describe the collaboration between traders, technologists, and researchers?
Yes, I can. It is hard to do this in a way that is comprehensive, but maybe I can talk about it at a very high level. So technologists, let's call them software engineers in this case, are building tools that traders are using to ingest a lot of data from markets around the world, right? Those traders are taking that data and working with researchers to build models and algorithms that those traders will then use to instruct the tools and systems that the technologists have also built to execute trades back to those markets. So it's kind of a cyclical process. But oftentimes it's the software engineers building the platforms that the researchers and traders use to gather data and then make decisions based on that data, execute it back out to the market. I hope that's helpful at a high level.
Absolutely. And with just a few more minutes, just a couple more minutes, I'll ask this last question. If you could go back and tell your day one self working at Jane Street, what would it be?
Yeah, what could I tell? Okay, so I guess I've been at Jane Street now for about 5.5 years. The firm has changed so much since I got there. We grew from a company of a little under 600, and now we're certainly over 2,000 employees. Man, I'd tell myself to trust the company, which is not something I ever found myself saying. But I came into Jane Street after working at a couple of other similar places, but hadn't felt like I had found my home or a company that respected me as a human or individual. And I heard a lot of people talk about how Jane Street really cared for its employees. And really wanted its employees to bring themselves, their real self to work. And I was like, I don't believe that. I don't trust that. There's no way it could be true. Like, I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it took me a couple years. Honestly, it took me until the pandemic, and when I saw Jane Street's response to it and how well cared, how much care they put into their employees and our mental and physical well-being at the time, that I really started to believe it. And I think if I had just leaned into it a couple of years earlier, I probably would have been even happier than I am now. But I love working at Jane Street. It's my favorite job I've ever had, and I hope I never have to leave. I hope I can continue to come to all of your color stacked events and continue to talk about Jane Street there as well.
Yes, I love that for you, Grace. I love when people love their job, because it's like we spend so much time of our day, working. So might as well love where you're at.
Yeah.
Thank you so much overall for sharing, Grace. You've shared so much with our community about Jane Street, your wonderful internship programs, and how our members of the community can join. But unfortunately, we have come to an end. So sad to say. But Michelle Adana, we'd love to have you back to close us out.
Yeah. Thank I feel like Nicki Minaj when she's on stage, she's like, y'all, thank you so much. Shout out to that amazing Ask Me Anything session. Let's see it. Let's see it in the emojis, in the chat. Thank you. What was your favorite part? Real quick. Thank you so much to Grace. Thank you so much to Naisha. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Thank y'all for being just in there and super into it. We absolutely love you, and this is what it's all about. Y'all, we're gonna keep this bad boy moving. So let's find each other. Let's find each other at the next session, which and our final session of the day. I'm not even gonna get into it. But our final session of the day with HubSpot. So I will meet you at the HubSpot stage.